Good morning, yogis and yoginis. Welcome to today's Sunday Sutras chat, where we will discuss what the sutras have to say about God. I like to refer to this as the God option in the sutras. So every Sunday at 10:30 for about 30 minutes, we chat about the wisdom teachings of the Yoga Sutras. My name is Kelsey Delane, and I'm a yoga mentor to yogis and to yoga teachers that are ready to uncover what their yoga practice is really about. And in doing so, as we read, digest, discuss, practice, integrate these practices into our daily life, then as yoga teachers, we can organically and authentically, hey Angie, hey Erica, share them with our students. So if you're a yoga teacher or a yoga practitioner that has been practicing yoga asana, meaning the postures of yoga, you roll out your yoga mat, whether it's at a studio or in your own home or at a gym, and you have noticed that this practice has started to change you from the inside out. Yes, you're getting stronger, more comfortable in your body, relieving some of the symptoms of chronic stress, but you know there's something more. This is the place for you. So in today's talk, we are getting right into the nitty-gritty, heavier, sometimes triggering stuff of the idea of God. And I want to begin this conversation by saying that regardless of your current God consciousness or lack thereof, whether you see the world as having a God, what that looks like, or not, you're in the right place, because this is a place where we can discuss what that means relative to our yoga practice, relative to teaching yoga. So my own background, my own lens that I'm looking through as a yogi and as a teacher is that I grew up in a highly religious home that was very dogmatic, the religious organization that I grew up in, and I was very indoctrinated. And that intense upbringing really characterized my vision of reality and my understanding of this thing called God. So for me, and I know for so many others, the word God itself is very heavy. It's very multifaceted. You have feelings, thoughts, belief systems around this word. So as I discuss this God option, you may notice that throughout class or throughout this talk, I will switch out the word God for something else. And the reason that I do this is because in an effort to open my own mind to seeing things differently than perhaps I was originally shaped to see them, using different language to talk about the same thing helps my mind stay more flexible, more malleable, more open to seeing things differently. And so that serves me. I hope it serves you as well. So I'll use a lot of different words to talk about this thing that is really unnameable, that is beyond the material world. So it's beyond language, because language is of the material world. And we use language to the best of our ability to discuss these things that are abstract and beyond this world. So in my effort to use language to the best of my ability to talk about these things that are really beyond speech, I will interchange words for God. In the sutras, this word is Ishvara, and in Patanjali's 8 limbs, it is the final niyama where we are called to surrender. To surrender to what? Well, according to the Yoga Sutras, which, by the way, the sutras themselves are this outlining of a bunch of different solutions to suffering. So if you're a human being, you're going to experience suffering according to the Yoga Sutras because you have a mind. And because your mind is Prakriti, then that means it is always changing. And it is subject to being unconscious, to being disconnected from confidence, wisdom, and joy, or Purusha. So your very nature, the fact that you are human, means, according to the sutras, that you will suffer. And therefore, we want some tools, we want some solutions to aid us in minimizing this suffering or preventing it altogether. So one of these options, of the many, is the option of having a God consciousness, a relationship with something that is beyond you, that is beyond the material world. In Sutra 124, it describes Ishvara as being neither this nor that. Ishvara is non-human. It's not subject to the same rules of nature that we are as humans. And Sutra 125 says that this Ishvara, this God, this divine energy, universe, source, whatever you want to call it, is all-knowing. It is the seed of all knowledge. And so we as yogis get to try on this awareness of Ishvara in our lives, or lack thereof, and it follows a ton of other solutions. So this is one of many. My invitation to you is to try it on and then experience the results. In another sutra it says, or you're experiencing suffering, okay, you can have a God consciousness and see if that helps eliminate suffering, or lengthen your exhale. Wow, okay, I can have a God, or I can lengthen my exhale. But the bottom line, my point is that this is not a one-size-fits-all toolbox. This is a roadmap for becoming incredibly inquisitive and open to a lot of solutions, to trying on tools and solutions that others have found a lot of success with, seeing how they work in your own heart, mind, body experience, and then deciding if you want to continue with those tools or find other tools. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a really safe way for someone like me that has a history that has made this idea of God really a challenging one. For me, this is a really safe way to try on this reality without any pressure, without any dogma or doctrine around it. I just get to explore and see how that lands for me. So Ishvara, this beyond the worldly experience entity that is full of knowledge, is not human. So us as human beings, we suffer, but this God consciousness does not. And we can begin to infuse the qualities of God into our own experiences, according to the Yoga Sutras, by meditating on the qualities of God. So if this God consciousness, this source, this light, this energy, being, etc., beyond humanity, beyond the earthly world, is loving, understanding, all-knowing, then I get to meditate on those qualities, and over time, according to the sutras, I can start to absorb those qualities by meditating on them. So that's one way that we can use a God consciousness to start to bring transformation from the inside out, is that we can meditate on the qualities of God, knowing that, hey, okay, cool, Hannah, join us back when you get home. So I can meditate on the qualities of God and see those qualities start to be imbued into my own being. And another way that we can use this tool, according to the 8 limbs, when we surrender the outcome. So Ishvara Pranidhana is one of the niyamas, the steps to working with our lifestyle and how we can reduce suffering through these 8 practices that are intended to be practiced sequentially. So the niyamas is the second step. And of those 5 niyamas, Ishvara Pranidhana is where we get to let go. We get to surrender to something beyond us. So I tell my students all the time, that this could be simply to surrender to the fact that you don't have control over everything. My relationship with God, as I've come to understand, is very important to me. It's a huge part of my yoga practice. And my favorite prayer is the serenity prayer. I know this is a really well-known, well-used, beautiful prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. To me, that prayer encapsulates Ishvara Pranidhana, because the 3 steps of Kriya, which we've discussed in previous Sunday Sutras, the 3 steps of Kriya Yoga, the yoga of change, the yoga of taking action, the first step is the new practice, tapas. The second is self-reflection, svadhyaya. And the third is Ishvara Pranidhana. These are the last 3 niyamas, and they work together in unison. So I do my work, I reflect on it, and I'm willing to refine it. And then I let go of the outcome. So I could just be letting go in a general sense. I am surrendering to the fact that I am not in control. Or I could surrender to God, right? So depending on what set of beliefs that you have, the God consciousness you have or lack thereof, the beautiful thing about yoga is that it is a cosmology, a way of living that creates a foundation that you can lie your religious beliefs or your lack of God consciousness, you can place those on top of these tools and use them together for that much more strength. So if you have a relationship with God that is meaningful to you, if you have a belief system that's meaningful to you, then the sutras can be woven into that belief system and in my experience, strengthen it and give some practical tools that can pair with your beliefs to reduce suffering in your life. And in my experience, to bring you closer to this relationship that you have with Ishvara, with God, with the universe, with source, with love, with divine energy, whatever word that you use, if that's your experience of having this higher power in your life. So our ability to surrender is the number one most important tool in my life. I can practice the tools of, hygiene of my body and asana and pranayama. I can teach the tools to other students. However, in my experience, if I rely on my own ability to figure things out, my own wisdom, my own strength, my own courage, if I rely on myself, I find that I start to hit walls. And I have been hearing in a lot of self-development arenas, spiritual arenas, yoga arenas, this saying, I heard it, I believe, first from Maria Forleo, or maybe Danielle Laporte, I can't remember. But this phrase, everything is figure-outable. And the truth is, I think that statement is a lie. And I believe that statement is a barrier between me and less suffering. Here's why. Everything is not figure-outable. Parenting, hey parents, moms, dads, grandparents, parenting is not figure-outable. If parenting was figure-outable, we would have a manual, and once it was figured out, we'd all be like footloose and fancy-free, smooth living, raising our kids. It is not figure-outable. As soon as we figure one thing out, then things change and we adapt, okay? The future is not figure-outable. I cannot figure out the future. And sometimes when I'm looking head on at a dilemma, at a challenge, at a problem that I need a solution to, sometimes my mind can see 2 options. Either I do this or I do that. And then I spend my time racking my brain trying to find the best answer. Because at some level, I believe there is a best answer. And I listened to a really awesome podcast on TED Radio Hour about choices. So you can look it up, TED Radio Hour, look for the podcast on choices. It's a really, really great podcast. And in this podcast, one of the professors that spoke was talking about how the reason that decisions are difficult is because we believe that there is an unbiased right and wrong choice, a good and bad choice, that one choice will bring us more suffering, hey Nicole, and one choice will bring us less suffering. So that's a whole nother story. But with making choices, if I believe everything is figure-outable, then I'm trying to figure out and discern which is the right choice. And I might be able to do practical things like write a pros and cons list, check in with people that I respect and get their feedback, talk to other people who've been through it before, and I can get a lot of good information and I can glean that and help myself make a wise choice. Sometimes, however, in my experience, there's a third option. There's a third option that maybe I can't even see. And the beauty of my experience of being human is that there are a lot of things that are beyond my control. And honestly, I have come to learn that that is one of the most freeing ways to be guided, is to allow the things I can't control to move me in one direction or the next. So let's say you don't know where to live. You have to find a new living situation. You can't figure out where it should be. You don't know where the right place is. You don't know what the best price is, etc. So you have a dilemma. You don't know where to live. And one choice comes up. And that may or may not work. So you're in limbo, waiting to find out if this new living situation is going to come through. And that brings a lot of stress, because having a place to live is one of our basic needs. And when we don't have our basic needs met, a lot of our energy goes to figuring out that solution. But what if you chose in limbo, when decisions are being made for you or by you, you're in that limbo period, that you choose Ishvara Pranidhana. I am going to surrender the results to this. I'm going to surrender to the fact that I can't control exactly how things work out with my living situation, or what prices are offered, or whether the landlord accepts my application, etc., etc. There's a lot of things that are beyond my control, and I have started to use that as my most comforting tool, because I choose to see that as guidance. That the universe, God, whatever word you want to use, Ishvara, that is beyond the constraints of this world, beyond human suffering, that energy, that intelligence is guiding me in one direction or the next. So I listened recently to Natalie Bailey's talk, Facebook Live, on the 9th path. And this is a very similar idea, that if you see 8 paths out in front of you, that perhaps there's a 9th. And I don't know if there's a 9th path. I don't know if there's a third option to my dilemma all the time, right away. And so, hey Meg. And so my choice as a yogi is to give myself the comfort and the freedom to surrender into the ride, right? To relax into the roller coaster. And instead of gripping the wheel and tensing my shoulders and sweating and letting my heart pump, I can instead say, all right, this roller coaster is going to go where it's going to go. And I'm going to let my body relax. I'm going to let my soul and my heart relax. And I'm going to kind of groove with it. To me, that's what samadhi feels like, the last limb of the 8-limb path, going with the flow and being connected. It really feels like that. And to me, Ishvara Pranidhana, surrendering the results, surrendering to my God consciousness, surrendering to a higher power, to the universe, to something that's not me, One of the coolest things I heard recently, I wish I could remember the name of this teacher, but it was through Embodied Philosophy. They have a podcast, and it was one of their online trainings. And this yoga teacher was discussing the idea of higher power, and that some people choose to have a higher power and some people choose to not believe in a higher power. And I found his perspective very interesting. He challenged the audience, that those in the audience that do not have a higher power, to think about going into the ocean and trying to stop the tide. So if you don't believe in a higher power, try going to the ocean and stop the tide. Or make the sun not rise tomorrow. Or one of his examples, go stand in the sun for 24 hours and see if that sun is a higher power than you. So my invitation in this dialogue is for you to loosen your grip on the way you see the world just enough to entertain some new thoughts. If you have yet to establish a relationship with a higher power, or to have that be part of the way you see the world, this conversation is still for you. These Yoga Sutras are still for you. There's 195 solutions in this book, and the God option is one of them. So, however, perhaps think about the things that are beyond your control and ask yourself, is there a power, some power that is greater than me? The power of gravity. Can you resist gravity? Right? So that's my invitation, is for those of you that do not have a God consciousness, to explore the idea, simply because, according to the sutras, it is a shortcut to ending suffering, shortcut to preventing suffering. And one of the 4 steps that yoga teaches us that we can decide if something is clear perception. So first you can, or the 3 ways you can decide if something is clear perception is direct experience, inference, and a reliable source. So if you have yet to have direct experience with something called God or the universe, if you have yet to have direct experience, then I invite you to start with inferring based on the things that you see around you. And I hope that you consider me a reliable source. And so I'm here to tell you that all of my tools of yoga are exponentially more impactful when I infuse them with my consciousness of a power greater than me, so that I can surrender, relax, and lean into the ways that things unfold in life. I truly believe and agree with Oprah Winfrey. I'm such a groupie of Oprah. I love her. But she says that there are no mistakes, just detours. And I believe this, to me, is connected to my willingness to surrender, that even when things go wrong, even when I make mistakes, even when I'm completely confused, when I was 20 nothing with a new baby and knew that my marriage was ending, and I felt 100% clueless, 100% alone, 100% wrong, I made a choice to surrender and say, okay, I've made choices that got me here. I can't write out the outcome of this story the way that I want it to be. I don't have that much power. I choose to surrender, to have faith that there is something beyond me. I choose to relax into that surrender and into that guidance. And that choice things have not gone perfectly. And I get stressed out and wigged out and freaked out and fearful all the time. But like I've said in past sessions of Sunday Sutras, the miracle for me is that it takes less time for me to snap out of fear and to choose surrender, to choose love, to choose faith instead. And that brings me so much joy, so much comfort, even in the most painful moments of my life. I understood, I experienced, I had the direct experience of a peace that passes all understanding. So if you're in the middle of one of those moments in time right now where you're totally unsure what to do, where maybe it feels like the floor was yanked out from beneath you, or something really important and exciting is on the horizon, then explore this opportunity to practice yoga by letting your nails unclaw whatever you're holding on to, and to open up your heart to being guided, to surrendering to the fact that there are aspects of life that are beyond your control, to ask for the courage to change the things you can, to ask for the wisdom to know which part should I act on, which part should I surrender to. It's confusing. So that's the beautiful thing about our practice, is it is a practice. And if you have questions, if you have comments, if you're like, Kelsey, that made no sense, or Kelsey, you're, preaching to the wrong room, or whatever. I know that this is a heavy topic. It's a heavy topic for me. It's a challenging topic for me. And so it's important for my own healing, for my own speaking my truth, to be really clear that yoga is not a religion. Yoga comes from Indian culture, it comes from Hinduism, but we've been able to, thanks to the help of amazing teachers and gurus like Krishnamacharya, to dissect the wisdom teaching of the sutras from religiosity. Okay, so as we explore and investigate these sutras as wisdom teaching, then we can apply them to our own religious set of beliefs or lack thereof. So yoga is not a religion, it's a philosophy, it's a cosmology, it's a way of life. And you can have God as an option in your yoga practice. And my bias, my experience is that God option has been incredibly the most important piece of my practice, because without it, I cannot seem to settle into samadhi, into the flow. It's that important to me. So please reach out. Challenge me, question me, share if you disagree, share your experiences. I read a really awesome post from a friend of mine named Kayla of Recovery Revolution. If you're enthusiastic about yoga and recovery from substance abuse, recovery from trauma, go look at Recovery Revolution's Instagram page. And she posted recently that spirituality doesn't have to be complex. And I really liked that. What is spirituality to you? What does higher power even mean to you? Let's keep the conversation going. So we don't have to be restricted to one way of thinking. We don't have to be limited to our set of beliefs as they are right now, as they've been shaped from our life up until now. We can be malleable and flexible and loose and open. I also really enjoy the way that Gabrielle Bernstein depicts her relationship with what she calls the universe, right? So if that speaks to you, the universe, then when you use mantras or prayers, you could be sending it out into the universe. You don't have to know the name of your higher power. You don't have to understand it completely. You don't have to have a full picture of what that means to you to just try these things on. So let me know how that goes. So much love to you, yogis. I'll be here again next Sunday. 10:30 a.m. we will continue this dialogue on what this means to infuse spirituality into your yoga practice, that yoga can absolutely be spiritual, and it can also be whatever it is that you want to make it. So that's the freedom, that's the beauty of our practice. Thank you so much for those that have joined live and for those that have watched on replay. Please share this video with those that you know would benefit or have something to contribute to the conversation, because my goal is not to talk to this camera by myself every Sunday. My goal is to have a conversation that is ongoing, that is rich, that is authentic, and that is uplifting to you all and to myself. Angie Van, you're my spirit animal too. So much love, yogis. Hope to see you next Sunday, 10:30. Don't miss it. Adios.